morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Charlie coming to you live from our radio station, Voice of Uganda Radio. We're starting a little bit late today because I just rushed in. As all of you know, I was not here yesterday. But we are ready to go, and we're going to go from now until 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So we are very happy that you could stay and wait for me to come in. Needless to say, I missed all of you yesterday, but we are ready to go. We are ready to go, and very soon my co-host James Ssemakula is coming in, and we will be ready to. We will be able to tag team this today. I know it is Sunday. Many of you may have just come back from church. Many of you are preparing to go to church, and some of you are just preparing to return to church or just getting ready to go to sleep. But you could have been doing a lot of other things. We are just happy that you chose to spend the next 2 hours or so with me on Voice of Uganda Radio and on our program Focus on Uganda. As always, I always dispense with housekeeping very quickly, and then we get to the meat of our program. Most of you who are calling me or are listening right now are simply calling two numbers to listen. And then there are some of you who are not only calling to listen, but they want to participate in the discussion, and they have got a set of numbers that they are also using. For those who are listening, these are the two numbers, 712-432-6876 or 484-718-0232. For those of you who want to also participate in the discussion, we have two studio numbers and three toll-free numbers. The two studio numbers are 610-539-1740, and the second studio number is 215-392-2180. If you'll be calling from Sweden, you have a toll-free number, and that number is 085-197-0858. If you're calling from the United Kingdom, the UK, we also have a telephone, a toll-free number for you. It's 020-328-77019. For those of you, particularly those from Uganda and other parts of the world, if you have an Android phone and you can download a Viber software on it, you'll be able to call free. And the Viber number that we have here is 484-904-7038. Of course, you can get all of these numbers at the Voice of Uganda Radio website, www.voiceofugandaradio.com. And you can also find there our email address, which is info@voiceofugandaradio.com. Many of you just dispense with telephones altogether and either listen on our website or they use their Skype. Our Skype name here at Voice of Uganda Radio is Voice Uganda. If you're searching the Skype, look for Voice Uganda and you'll find us and you'll be able to communicate with us using Skype. Let me invite you to also go onto our Facebook. Facebook is very busy. We are almost every day, putting together articles or news information that you could use. And a lot of people are also going on there, so please visit us on our Facebook. Also, our main organization is called Federalist Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda. Our organization website is www.fadu.org. www.fadu.org. When you go there, you'll be able to find out what we are all about, and what our mission is, and also be able to register as a member of FADU if you so wish. You would be able to find the information you need to make an informed decision as to whether FADU is your organization or not. If it is your organization, you can register as a member, but you can also continue to look at other and other pages on our website to get much more informed. We have videos over there. We have news articles over there. But most importantly, we are simply informing you of our mission and what we are all about. We have not changed our programs much as we always bring to you during the weekend. On Saturday, we still have 6 programs, and on Sunday, we have 5. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we have 2 programs each, and on Friday, we have 2 programs. On Saturdays and Sundays is where most of our programs are. And if you go onto our website and click programs, you will be able to see the slate of programs and what time they come on, and also who the host or hosts are. Before we go on to our discussion, we cannot, of course, forget to talk about the Uganda Liberation Fund. This is a daily occurrence, and we do it every single time we are on the air. As you are well aware, our main mission is to bring about and install the people's democracy in Uganda, a long-lasting people's democracy in Uganda that allows people to take ownership of their country and make decisions that guide its future, including the kind of political system or economic system they need to have in the country, including the kind of leadership structure they need to put into that system, and the kind of people they need to fill those leadership positions in the government. We are therefore always looking for people, Ugandan patriots, who can join us and start the ball rolling. Our struggle will always continue. We are dedicated for it for the long haul. We will always be there. And if you are not yet a member, please think in terms of joining us. You don't have to join us in order to make a contribution, of course. So if you click donate, you will be able to see a slate of options. There are people who are donating $5, some people donating 10, 20, 50, some people donating 75, some people are donating $100. Most of these people are averaging about $25 a month. However, you can start out as low as you want. But we ask, if possible, you can send us a monthly donation. However, if you are not in a position to do that, a one-time donation also is very much welcome. Our job is enormous, our job is big, but with your help, with your contribution, with your support, whether it is cash or in kind, helps us move forward in our struggle. Because our struggle is your struggle, we want you to participate. We invite you to participate and make sure that that little responsibility that is assigned to you by your citizenship, protect the constitution of the country, and to make sure nobody, the likes of Museveni, comes to disrupt what was a very wonderful country called Uganda. You can do that, you can do all of that by supporting the movement, the struggle to get rid of Museveni and install the people's government and the people's political and economic systems in our country. If you can do that, then you will be one of those few, very few Ugandans who are not waiting for somebody to correct the country for them. Then they can go home. Those Ugandans who, while waiting, are doing very, very little to ensure that there is a regime change in our country. Make sure that you are not one of those who is saying, oh, I need to be able to go home and visit my people, my family. I need to be able to go home and do this and that. Therefore, I cannot be seen or heard or known by Museveni as one of those who is working with Voice of Uganda Radio, with Charli and James and KB and Musana and all these other people to get rid of this government. You want to be safe. You want to be extremely safe. You want to be so safe that even if your people are dying, even if the country is crumbling, even if there are no infrastructures, even if there are no schools, even if there are no medical services, your freedom to be able to go home anytime you wish is more important than anything else. It's more important than the lives of your family. It's more important than the type of life your family lives. Whether they live or they die. For you, it is very important that you be able to go home every once in a while, maybe once a year or once every 3, 4, 5 years for 3, 4 weeks or so. Because that is more important to you than get rid of Museveni. You will not do anything to ensure that democracy is installed and made to thrive in Uganda. You are not one of us. You are one of them. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want a regime change in the country, if you want a political system that works for the people, you cannot put your freedom to go back home anytime you want above that of getting rid of Museveni and the dictatorship in Uganda. Those are things that you can simply think about and say, where are my priorities? Where indeed are my priorities? Is my freedom to go back home and visit, just visit for a little bit and come back home, is that more important than actually getting rid of Museveni, so that when you travel home, you are not just going to visit, you are just not visiting home, you are going to be home. You cannot be home unless home is where your home is. If you're in the United States, you're in Canada, you're in Pakistan, you're in any part of the world, and all you do is go home and visit, you should be very, very sick to your stomach. And especially if you go home and you see the squalor, the kind of life that your people are living, if they get a chance to show it to you, how in the world? How in the world can you simply say, my people at home are okay. All I have to do is continue to visit them and send money. For those of us who are in Voice of Uganda Radio, but most important for those of us who are in the Federalist Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda, our answers are made. We have reached peace with the decision we have made not to put our freedom to go home all the time ahead of the future and the lives of every Ugandan, every 34 million of them. We're not going to put our freedom to go home ahead of theirs. That is why we do what we do. If your priorities rhyme with ours, if your priority is freedom and democracy and development in Uganda, then please join us and make a contribution to the Uganda Liberation Fund. Any amount puts you in a different category. Because your participation in the struggle is that first step you make. That first step you make. Maybe you decide, I am going to donate $5. This today, I'm going to donate $5 to Federalist Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda. Just one time. Because that is the beginning of your being a true Ugandan. A true Ugandan defined by your citizenship responsibility and how you embrace those responsibilities. Being a Ugandan by name and not caring very much what happens to the country is not being a true Ugandan. Those kind of attitudes are left for the likes of Idi Amin, are left for the likes of Obote, are left for the likes of Museveni. I do not think, ladies and gentlemen, you can have it both ways. You have to make the hard choice that we have made. Museveni and the NRM dictatorship must go. They should not just go so they are replaced by the same group of people. They must go and be replaced by the people of Uganda. Not by some leader who comes to you and says, I'm going to liberate you from Museveni. If somebody comes and says, I'm going to liberate you from Museveni and I'm going to be your next leader, ask him one question, ask her one question, ask him one question. Who is going to liberate us from you? Get with a company, get with an organization whose primary mission is to give Uganda back to the people. I know you have heard this before. That's what Idi Amin said. That's what Obote said. That is what Museveni said. We want to instill democracy in Uganda. If you knew then what you know now, would you have supported Museveni? If you knew then what you know now, would you have supported Idi Amin? Of course, with Idi Amin, there was actually no choice. One day we in Uganda will say, let freedom reign. Because we shall have tasted freedom, literally tasted freedom. And we will have found it palatable, and we will have found it second to none. And we will have developed a thirst for freedom that can only be quenched by our action to make sure that that freedom that we have is never taken away. It starts with one step to ensure that that freedom begins to take hold in Uganda. It starts by you making a stand against Museveni, making a stand against the NRM dictatorship, making a stand against the tyranny. The kids that you are sending school fees for their school every day, every month, every term or every semester. How many of them passed the exams? Or how many of them who graduated or finished are now working and bringing home the bacon, the bringing home money the way you had envisioned it when you started supporting them? We would very much like you to join us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to take 1 minute to drink a glass of water, and then we are going to get into the meat of our program today. Let me ask the studio to take 1 minute away so that we can come back and start going. Thank you.
Gwe omulungi atuuliriza, kino kirango kya njawulo. Amanyi n'eddoboozi, nze Muga James, chairman ow'akakiiko akateesiteesi ak'omukolo okugenda okukyaza Katikkiro mu Bungereza. Charles Peter Mayiga, Katikkiro wa Buganda, yakkiriza era yakakasa olugendo lwe olw'okulambula bannayuganda ne Abaganda abali mu nsi ez'enjawulo. Mu nteekateeka eno, Katikkiro agenda kulambula UK, agendeko Sweden, agendeko Canada, agendeko mu USA. Mu nteekateeka eno, naffe tulina omukisa munene nnyo okusonda ettoffaali okuzza Buganda ku ntikko. Pulogulaamu egenda kutambula etya? Pulogulaamu etambula bw'eti: ng'ennaku z'omwezi 23 August ali mu UK ku Harris Academy, oluvannyuma yeekoneko mu bika by'Abaganda. Bw'avaayo agende Sweden ng'ennaku z'omwezi 26 okutuuka ng'ennaku z'omwezi 28 mu August omwaka guno. Bw'avaayo ajja kuba nga yeekonako e Toronto mu Canada ng'ennaku z'omwezi 29 okutuuka ng'ennaku z'omwezi 30. Bw'avaayo agende Chicago 31 mu August okutuukira ddala nga 4 September. Bw'avaayo agendeko mu Boston mu America okuva ng'ennaku z'omwezi 4 okutuuka ng'ennaku z'omwezi 8. Katikkiro asuubira okudda e Uganda ng'ennaku z'omwezi 9 mu September omwaka guno. Guno gwe mukisa gwaffe okulaga obwagazi bwaffe erinnyaffe Buganda. Ng'okumanya ebisingawo osobola okukyalira omukutu gwaffe friendsofbuganda.org.uk. Sonda ensimbi ezo ezinayamba okuddaabiriza amasiro ate n'embuga z'amasaza ag'enjawulo okuzza Buganda ku ntikko. Charles Peter Mayiga agenda kuba nga atukyalira ate goberera enteekateeka ez'enjawulo mu nsi ezo z'emmenye, n'abakulu abateesiteesi bajja kuba nga bakutegeeza ebigenda mu maaso. Kabaka wapeke kabonero akalaga nti Katonda ne Buganda omwoyo gugube gulimira kabaka wange.
Uganda American Muslim Association invites you to the 6th annual meeting and conference. It will be held from July 11th, 2014 to July 13th, 2014 in Beltsville, Maryland. For more details, you can visit our website at uwamalink.org or call phone number 301-408-8417. Remember, it's every Muslim's duty to know of the plight of another Muslim. This is an opportunity for you to meet and know fellow Muslims from Uganda living in America.
gentlemen, this is Charlie. I am back. It is now 9:35, 9:38 or so, and we are going to be going until 11 o'clock. We have dispensed with our preliminary housekeeping, and we are now ready to go on to the meat of our program. And as you, of course, know, every day we try to bring a different topic that we put emphasis on. There are general discussions that people engage in every single time that we're on the air, Saturday and Sunday. But we always have a general topic that we want to pursue given the time. Sometimes we don't get to it, but often we already have a topic that we want to talk about. And today, I would like to talk about, actually, I would like to address myself, or I like to Voice of Uganda Radio and FADU to address itself to those Ugandans, the procrastinators, who are saying, we want a regime change in Uganda. Of course we do. We want a better life for our people. And yet, they do nothing. I preempted a little bit of my topic when I was doing my housekeeping. Those Ugandans who, for whatever reason, are not doing anything. Those Ugandans who, for whatever reason, they complain and complain and complain about the situation in Uganda. They complain about Museveni, and they make it a vocation almost, a career, complaining about Museveni. And yet, they are not doing anything about it. There is a myriad of reasons why some Ugandans, that most Ugandans, don't even think about doing something about the situation in their country. For a lot of Ugandans, there isn't even a reason. There isn't even a reason, because when you talk to them, they support you 100%. But that support for the struggle stops at the words that come out of their mouth. Ladies and gentlemen, you have heard a lot of people say on many occasions that Museveni has since stopped being our problem, because Museveni and the government is the new normal in Uganda. Because our new normal consists of him doing to us what he has been doing for all these years. That is our normal in Uganda now. The other normal, the previous normals, are those that the people who are living outside Uganda, the people in the diaspora, crave. That is the same as going back to the good old days. That new normal is not what we, the people of Uganda, want. How do you say to yourself, to your wife, to your husband, to your children, to your friends and fellow citizens? How do you say to them, God, I want Museveni to go, and then you just stop there? How can you do that? Because that is something that I have failed to understand. How can you say, God, I want Museveni to go, and then you just stop there? I want this regime to go. I want the people of Uganda to have a better life, and then you just stop there. I know that people say, God, I wish I could have something to eat. And then they go and get food to eat. If there is no ready food, they eat something. If there is nothing to eat, they cook something to eat. Because they are hungry. But we Ugandans are hungry, very, very hungry for democracy, very, very hungry for a good government that is responsible to us. But we do nothing. We do nothing, ladies and gentlemen. What has become of us? Because this is not just Voice of Uganda Radio. This is not just Fadu failing to reach these Ugandans. We have reached them many times. Many of them are listening to us right now. And many of us listen to each of the programs that we bring to you, especially on Saturdays and Sundays. They are listening. And yet, they do nothing. My address today is to you. And it's not the first time we have talked about this, because, ladies and gentlemen, we come onto the radio with one and only one thing, asking you to join in the struggle and do a bunch of things. There's many ways that you can do. There are many things that you can do, at least to be a part of the struggle. And we do all kinds of things. We do promotions. We beg you. We push you. Sometimes we challenge you. Every Saturday and Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, we are coming up with topics to talk to you about, just so you can get up off your duff and do something about your country. And there you are, sitting pretty, doing nothing. I have heard, and you have heard, many Ugandans say, oh, I don't want my name to be out there because I want to be able to go home every once in a while. I have heard Ugandans say, we don't need any more war. We have suffered enough. We have suffered enough, and are we continuing to suffer? Before you say we have suffered enough, how about you stop the Ugandans from suffering in the first place? Then you say we have suffered enough. We now don't want any more suffering. We have heard Ugandans say, I give it all to Jesus Christ, my Savior. He knows what is best for Ugandans. I have made peace with my Jesus. And Jesus will provide the answer for us. I have heard Ugandans who say, I don't want to be a part of any movement. I don't want to be a part of any struggle against the government. Museveni will leave, Museveni will die, and a better government will come. The assumption here is if Museveni leaves, the person who follows him will automatically be a better president than Museveni. Has it ever occurred to you, ladies and gentlemen, that perhaps, just perhaps, when Museveni is dead and gone, Museveni is going to die in office. And when he's dead and gone, he's 73 or something now. What if he lives to be 90? He will eventually die in office. Has it ever occurred to you that when Museveni is dead and gone, that person who is going to follow him might be even worse than Museveni? Not thinking about that is like putting your head in the sand. sticking your head in the sand, literally. I have heard Ugandans say, why bother with Uganda? I have a good life here. My wife is here. My children are here. My relatives are here. Why bother with Ugandan? I'm an American citizen. This country, this America, is a what? Is an immigrant country. People come from other parts of the world to live and thrive in America. Why do you want to go backwards? That backward country called Uganda. I'm not going to waste my time worrying about Uganda. Uganda is none of my business now. I'm in a better place. Every once in a while, I support a child or two with school fees back home. I even go back home and visit once in a while. But Uganda is not my home anymore. America is my home. I just met a guy like that in New York not too long ago. You met people like that. It almost brings tears to your eyes just listening to some of the convoluted excuses Ugandans come up with in order to do nothing. Here on Voice of Uganda Radio and at Fadu, we try to encourage people to make the right decision. It's better to use honey than vinegar to trap a fly. Don't challenge people into making a decision. Give them the information they need so they will make an informed decision. Give them choices, and they will pick the choice that best fits them. And we come onto this radio and talk on several topics in different languages every single day except Thursday. Because we want you to come to the realization that if you individually don't come up and say, I am going to do something about my country, it will not get done. Let us think a little bit more carefully. The reason why Museveni has stayed this long, ladies and gentlemen, the reason why Museveni has stayed this long is because of people like you. Those of you who are not involved in this struggle or any other struggle to get rid of Museveni. Because of people like you, Museveni depends on people like you to extend his brutality, to extend his rule. If you go back and see how Museveni's overall non-philosophy, non-political philosophy, so forth, has transmuted over the year. From the bush, where the 10-point program was such a draw, to Museveni throwing 2 million people in concentration camps, to Museveni burning Ugandans in a railway cart, to Museveni killing millions of people, not only in Uganda but in Rwanda, in Burundi, in Congo. If you can remember that, if you can think about where we have been, and then look forward and ask yourself, where are we going from here on out? The worst thing you can do, ladies and gentlemen, is try to wait Museveni out. Because he's not going away. Museveni's body may die, but Museveni is there to stay. Unless you put a stop to it. And what you are doing right now is not working. You have waited and you have waited. I literally know Ugandans who have waited 20 years. And I know Ugandans who have been waiting for true democracy to come to Uganda ever since 1966. They fought against Obote 1. Then they started fighting Idi Amin. Then they fought tooth and nail against Obote 2. And then they are still fighting against Museveni. And if the gods of their tribes are on their side, they will continue to fight against the person who is going to replace Museveni. Why don't you stop fighting? Why don't you engage in that fight to end all other fights? If our problem is at the leaders, one leader after another, one bad leader after another coming, why don't we change tactics? Why don't we change tactics? Instead of focusing on the leadership, why don't we focus on the system? You waited and waited and waited, and now your children are involved and your grandchildren are getting involved. You will be dead and gone, and your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren will be involved in the same struggle for the soul of our country. But right next to you, and let's just put it very plainly, however it is you do, whatever it is that you are doing is obviously not working. Because you are the very person who, whenever we talk to you about Fadu, the first thing that comes out of your mouth is, who is the leader? Before you have even figured out what Fadu stands for, what Fadu wants to do, the first thing out of your mouth is, who is the leader? You want to vet the person to death before you join. And most likely, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to find that leader wanting. You are going to find something very wrong with that leader. Because your criteria for judging a good leader from a bad leader are just about the same. Some of you claim, and I use the word claim very deliberately, that if you get involved in the liberation struggle, somehow Museveni will know about it. And then when you go to Uganda, they will pick you up at a table and take you to the safe houses, torture you to death, and so forth. First of all, Let's put it this way. First of all, you are so full of yourself. You are not that important to Museveni. Second of all, Museveni doesn't know your name. There are people who work in the State House. There are people who work in ISO. There are people who work in ESO, and they don't know your name. They know names of people like me, like James, like KB, like Musana, but they don't know you because you are not going to be constantly doing something that puts your name out there. There are very many people who are supporting Fadu, or they are supporting their own organization quietly. If your reason for not supporting a liberation movement in Uganda is because you don't want your name out, there are people who are supporting organizations anonymously. That takes away your excuse. That right there takes away your excuse. There are people who are doing it anonymously. Yes, Museveni is brutal. Yes, Museveni can kill. But we have not yet reached that point where Museveni is just going to kill people pell-mell. Ladies and gentlemen, you are an important person. But you are not that important that Museveni has sleepless nights worrying about you individually and what you would do to bring about the end of his government. I have got friends that for 20 years or so, they never went home. Thinking that, oh, because they wrote an article here or there and every once in a while they belong to an organization that is critical of Museveni, all of a sudden their name is on the big book in the State House. And as soon as they get to Entebbe, they'll be picked up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, these same people went home eventually. And people ignored them. They were looking for cameras and people to come and swoop down. I mean, with people with AK-47 to come and swoop down on them. They were ignored. Nobody even cared that they came back home. Ugandans go home every single day. By the hundreds, literally. They come and they go, they come and go. The airport in Uganda is not where they are going to pick you up and get rid of you. Ladies and gentlemen, that is an excuse that gives the word lame new definition. You just don't want to do it. That is just plain and simple. There are people like you who are just sitting at home and saying, let them struggle. Let them do the sacrifices. The Charlies of this world, the Jameses of this world, the KB, the Dorothys, the Brendas, the Musokes and so forth. Let them sacrifice. I am here to reap the fruits of their labor. They will struggle. They will sacrifice and do that. I am just busy taking care of my family and my career. Once they have gotten that country to a place where it is now thriving, they will then need me because I have expertise in certain areas. They will then need me. In other words, we who have been struggling so hard to get rid of Museveni, when we succeed, not if, when we succeed, we shall want people with expertise in this and that, and that is when we shall come after you. As a matter of fact, some of you think that we will come crawling to you once we have thrown away Museveni. When we are now trying to instill a true people's democracy, we shall then come crawling to you, begging you to come home and bring your expertise with it so that we can put to rights what has been going on wrong in the country. Does not work. It is not going to work that way, ladies and gentlemen. There were 250 people who went on the march on Washington with Martin Luther King. That's 250,000, ladies and gentlemen, or so. But the way they tell it, millions and millions went. Those who already live in Washington, and they just happened to be in Washington, they now say, we were on the march. We were at the march. People who were not even born yet are now saying, I was at the march in Washington, D.C. Everybody claims a piece of a good thing, but very few people actually do what it takes to bring about that good thing. Don't be that group of people that just sits and waits for some people to do good things so that they can reap the benefit. Our job, ladies and gentlemen, is mandated to us by the Constitution of Uganda, warts and all. By virtue of the fact that you were born a Ugandan, by virtue of the fact that your parents were Ugandans, whether by birth or naturalization, when Uganda, the land, when Uganda, the people, when Uganda, the country is in your soul, is in your psyche, is in your blood, you are called upon to defend the country, to free the country, defend and protect it. Because Museveni is who he is, and we already know Museveni. If you don't know Museveni yet, you have been not on this planet. If you don't know how bad Museveni is, you have been in someplace other than on this planet. But Museveni is what Museveni is. And in order to get rid of him, you have to be involved. Because, ladies and gentlemen, let this sink in. Museveni is doing what he is doing because you are letting him do so. You are the enabler. You are the person who allows Museveni to do what Museveni is doing. Let that sink in for a while, because you really need to grasp that fact. And don't go saying, oh, I'm just one person. That's 34 million Ugandan. I'm just one person. You can't be saying I'm the reason Museveni is doing what Museveni is doing. But guess what? You are a Ugandan. Or so you claim to be. Being a Ugandan carries with it certain responsibilities that need to be acted upon, and you are not doing so. That makes you individually and personally responsible for what Museveni is doing. You are the enabler. We are saying stop being an enabler. In Uganda, we have a word for that. Facilitators. You are facilitating Museveni's regime. You send money at home. You sit back on your hands, bury your head in the sand, and say, I'm not doing anything that is against the government. Oh, I've got families to visit at home. Oh, I have to go home every once in a while, like maybe once every 3 years for 2 months or for 1 week. I cannot rock the boat. Let other people, the other people that you are talking about, they also have families at home. Their families want to see them every once in a while. And by the way, if you are not at the level of people that are actually being directly sought by Museveni, don't put yourself at that level until you've done something that is worth putting yourself at that level. There are people here who haven't done diddly. They haven't done anything. And they think Museveni wants them the way Museveni wants Sezusa. Sejusa. They put them at that themselves at that category, having done absolutely nothing yet. You think, and this is a question you need to answer yourself, do you think donating $10 to Voice of Uganda Radio, but more specifically to FADU, Federalist Alliance for Democracy and Development in Uganda, you think that donating $10 just once automatically puts you at the level of Sejosa? So that Museveni will be looking for you. There are many of us who are so full of ourselves, we can't stand it. We put ourselves so high up. Actually, we put ourselves so high that we incapacitate ourselves. Donating $5 or $10 or something to Purdue will not put yourself in the big black book, in your name in the big black book in the State House in Entebbe. Believe me. Museveni has better things to worry about than a person who worries about his $10 or even his $5. Oh, I can't give $5 because it will put my name in the big black book. I think Ugandans are worth making fun of because some of the things that we are doing now is ridiculous. How about those Ugandans who say, oh, I have found Jesus Christ. I am now a born-again Christian. I pray every day that the good Lord intercede for us and get rid of Museveni. If you listen to our broadcast last week, one of our broadcasts, one of our caller was talking about Easter and the struggle that your Jesus Christ went through while he was still on this earth of ours. He died for our sins. So you can be saved if you believe in him. Ladies and gentlemen, that was a figurative. That was a very figurative statement. It is not to be taken literally. It still means that you have been endowed with the human capacity to do certain things without leaving it all to God, without leaving it all to Jesus Christ. You get up in the morning, you do not kneel down and pray to God, please God, put my underwear on. Oh, please God, put my bra on. I leave it all to you. You have that strength, that physical strength. Get up out of bed, go to take a shower, put your clothes on, prepare your own food, go inside, go outside, get in your car, drive away.
Charlie, you have a call?
Thank you. Caller, I see you. I'll be there in a minute. You cannot say, I leave it all to God. God already gave you the capacity to make decisions for yourself and the physical strength to get it done, to implement those decisions. You do not need God for certain things. You need God in your life. But you cannot say, oh God, I lay me down to sleep. Now give me sleep so I can sleep. You cannot sit on your chair and say, God, I'm hungry. I leave it all to you to feed me so I can get some food. You are a problem. Hello, caller. How are you?
Hello, how are you, my brother Charlie?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for calling.
Thank you for giving us this interesting presentation, the call for people to participate. I'm going to be very brief today, just to state a few things. One, as you've been saying, that we are endowed with human capacities to liberate ourselves. The one thing we need to understand is that, let me maybe start with a story, is that the god of the lion is the god of the gazelle. Therefore, when the gazelle wakes up in the morning, it prays to its god that let me trod this savannah and eat well, find the green grass. But at the same time, the gazelle prays to God, saying, let me be saved from the lion, not to make me its lunch. On the other hand, the lion wakes up in the morning saying, Lord, make the legs of the gazelle weak, and let me be able to catch the gazelle so that I can have lunch. And this is the story. So, every morning, as I said, a gazelle wakes up, it knows it must outrun the fastest lion or it will be killed. And the lion wakes up and it knows it must run faster than the slowest gazelle or it will starve. This is the situation we are in. As a people, given brains and hands, we cannot just be on our knees and pray to God that God do not allow this monster to devour us. Because the monster is also praying to its God. So we have to do better. We have to run faster. We have to use our numbers in unity and be able to beat the lion or the wild animal from eating us. So we cannot sit back, and I've said this before, that democracy, freedom, and liberty is not like a breakfast in a diner or in a restaurant where you go and you say, pass me a menu, you read the menu, you make an order. you struggle for it. It's not as easy as going in your back garden and picking marakwanga, or going in your back garden and picking dodo, go home and steam it. This is a process. You till the land and you sow democracy. Forgive me. And it germinates, it grows, you tend to it. This is the tilling time for us, so that we can uproot the wild plants from the land, so that we can sow the seeds of democracy and tend to them. Those who think that they are going to show up at the time of tending to the plant, you will be too late, because every seed will have an owner. My worry is that that seed, when it comes to harvesting, the owner might not harvest fairly, because the owner might not be willing to share with people who do not participate in the seeding. So we all have capacities in which we can participate in the process of liberating our country. We cannot sit back and wait for somebody to do it for us. This is our country. We are not going to wait for foreign countries to come to our rescue. They have their own interests. Once their interests are taken care of, they are less worried. So, again, I want to say that we need to wake up and be the fastest gazelle on the African savannah. Use our numbers to confuse the other carnivore that is trying to chew us up, so that we can defeat it, tire it out, and let it starve by denying it the resources of our nation that are being abused. I think it's important for all Ugandans to own the process of liberation. Some people have taken it upon themselves to blame and attack and criticize those of us who are calling for unity. We know the difficult process that we are going through. We know the people who have been in the government. We are a multi-ideological country. We're not from the same ideological page. But when it comes to matters of nationalism, matters of the nation, we all need to abandon what I would call our parochial views of orientation, whether political, social, economic, or spiritual, and move together. The divide and the rule mechanism that the regime in Kampala is utilizing must be seen through as transparent, and see the other side and reject them. We cannot allow ourselves to think about Uganda in piecemeals. This is one entity. We all need each other, and it's the moment to move forward. And this is the stand of the Federalist Alliance for Democracy. That's why many of us are participating in this process. This is the voice of Uganda. People who are pushing for means of dividing Ugandans are playing in the hands of Museveni. Museveni is the most divisive character Uganda has had in authority, who has not only divided the people along regional lines, but within the regional entities, he has created subcultures, and these are political subcultures and kingdoms, and he has moved further to divide the areas and causing people who have for long been together, pitting them against each other. Now you talk to the people from West Nile. The people from Terego were proud Teregians. The people from Vula were proud Vulanians. But he chose to create these, to make these two districts, very small districts. They don't have enough resources. Now they are at each other's neck over resources. This kind of divisiveness, whereby the people of Terego have to run to the president and the people of Vula have to run to the president to be able to have a district office, is not the way Uganda is going to go. Therefore, as a nation, before this divisive mechanism goes all the way to divide our families, which is already happening in some cases, we need to put a stop on it. And the only way to put a stop on it is to follow what the presenter above was saying. Make your contribution. There are people who are ready to be on the front lines, to inhale the poisonous gases, to face the police batons. But there is a process that needs to be financed. And the only way to do that is for you to come up and make your contribution as a Ugandan. And even friends of Uganda can come in and make contributions. But the onus, the primary responsibility is on Ugandans to do this. The Baganda have a saying that when your relative dies and you have to clean the dead body, you clean the dirtiest part, and then the neighbors will come and join you. This is what has to happen. We Ugandans need to muscle ourselves and come together in resources, and then the outsiders will come to assist us. I don't think I can emphasize this further, but our solution is in uniting against the regime in Kampala. That's the only way, in my view, we can overthrow this government. Thank you for this forum. Thank you, Fadu. Thank you, Voice of Uganda Radio.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so very much. I put it much more loudly, and he put it better than I did. But the message is the same. Get involved. Get as involved as you can in the struggle. Ladies and gentlemen, we eventually are labeled as Ugandans. There are certain things that through practice become characteristic of Uganda or of people. We have been messed with since independence, since before independence. You could say, ladies and gentlemen, when the British came, they didn't see Ugandans as worth colonizing. That should tell us something at the very beginning. They had to fight to keep Kenya. They didn't have to fight to keep Uganda. There were few little scuffles here and there, but they didn't have to fight to keep Uganda. When it got to that point, when Kenya was fighting through the Mau Mau, when it got to that time when people were fighting in West Africa, people were fighting in Congo and so forth for self-determination and independence, Ugandans were being used as soldiers to go and fight in other places, to fight people who were fighting for self-determination. Ugandan soldiers like Idi Amin and so forth went to Kenya to fight the Mau Mau. Did Kenyans want self-determination much more than Ugandans? No. We wanted self-determination just as equally, just as badly as the rest of the people who were colonized. India fought so hard. South Africans, they fought so hard for a very long time. The fight never ceased. How come, ladies and gentlemen, we Ugandans can't fight? How come we can't fight for what is rightfully ours? Are we as a people that easy to mess with? So far, ladies and gentlemen, history says yes. Hello, caller, how are you?
I'm fine. Charlie, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I am doing my thing here.
yeah, that's why I'm calling. We missed you yesterday. We had some kind of conversation yesterday with James and Ssemakula. So the main reason I'm calling, and I've just listened to another caller, Lawrence, talking about owning the liberation movement. Well, you can't put it better than that. A lot of people, as you've been pointing out, think that Charli Lakony will go kick himself out, and then the rest will come and share the dinner with you and celebrate after you picked it.
Yes, there are a lot of people are thinking that.
Yeah, they don't think that they are part of the movement, of the process of resolving. You can't be free until you determine your own destiny, until you determine the protection of your rights. And this is the reason I'm calling yesterday. In your absence, Mr. Ssemakula, I don't know whether he's listening from London. You know, he's a regular caller.
Yes, yes. And, he's Mr. Provocateur.
He raised two issues to which I want to further, respond. The first of all, these issues have really vast implications, especially in owning the liberation movement. He referred to our traditions and wondered why we should embrace the Western standards of human rights instead of taking our traditions, by that maybe he means culture too, as the basic standard to protect human rights, while our society changes in order to catch up with the West. This is my understanding of his the issue he raised, the first issue. The second issue was, he was wondering how long this process is going to take to achieve the necessary changes in these so-called traditional values. So I thought it was important to address those two issues. So in response to Ssemakula's concerns, it is important to understand what we mean by human rights in the first place. So if you are going to own the liberation process or movement, you have to understand what human rights, what we mean by human rights, but by whatever definition, and whether there should be one universal standard for their protection, for the protection of human rights, because that goes to Ssemakula's first issue. Yeah, as usual, I may bore you with the history, but the history is very important for us to understand it, where we've been and where to determine where we are going. From a historical perspective, we can very clearly identify two things. One of them, the concepts of human rights. The concept of human rights has varied in history, and a movement to protect human has also encountered various obstacles at different periods in history, including the current the process of liberating ourselves. For example, slavery was at one time acceptable and justified. Even people used the Bible to justify slavery, and quoted the verses and so on. So, but a time came when they said, no, this doesn't make sense. Social change had taken place, and people said, no, this is an issue of justice. It's not. I don't care what the verses in the Bible say. This is an issue of justice. Well, similarly, the women's rights were non-existent at one point in history until the women rose up and said, to use Lawrence's phrase, owned the movement to change the conditions that prevailed. So different reasons were given for the violation of human rights. Some reasons were embedded in culture, or some were even what you may call traditions. Others were religious, as I just pointed out. And many others were blatant racism. And also, of course, ideology. All these factors have been very important in violation of human rights. And before you own the movement to liberate yourself, you have to understand all those factors. So the movements were activated in the response in history to these situations of violation of human rights. These included, for example, the abolitionist movement, the women's movement, political independence movement. These movements were for social change and aimed at changing, one can say, traditions and culture and ideologies which were standing in the way of protecting human rights. And some of these, as far as I can see, some of these movements did not bear fruits for a century. So from a historical perspective, I may disappoint Mr. Ssemakula. I'm not going to try to tell him that our movement will also take a century before we liberate ourselves. But some of the movements took, unlike today, these movements prior to modernity the communication was not instantaneous as it is today. Now we are on Voice of Uganda Radio. This didn't exist in the 1800s. The abolitionist movement could not use such communication devices, and so we exist in a different era technologically, and we should utilize these opportunities because of instantaneous communication. Social change moves much faster, and probably strengthening our owning of the liberation movement. So to conclude the historical part, when the UN was formed in 1945 as a direct result of preventing the Holocaust from occurring again, that happened in Germany, it was realized that the protection of human rights should be universal. It should not depend on your color, your race, your sex, your age. It should be universal. Everybody should be given a right, their rights. Hence, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights in 1966. These two documents actually destroyed what you could call traditional way of objecting to protecting human rights. Culture no longer became a good excuse to say, oh, women can't do this because you know what? Our women for a long time, or our culture does not permit women to do this, and so on and so on. The Asian, this is the idea of traditions and culture, the justification of traditions and cultures to violate human rights was finally, attacked. And the idea of Asian values, which existed in 1960s to 1980s, was in a way decimated because it didn't make sense. Asians used to say, well, the Asian values are incompatible with this and that and that. The other one, in other words, they were saying, you can't democratize, you can't westernize Asian cultures because they are different. What they forgot was that two giants of democratic systems exist in Asia. India, is the biggest democratic system in the world, and Japan. And yet these two countries do embrace traditional values. There is no cultural entity I know that really values their culture more than the Hindus or the Japanese. Even gardens are designed according to some designs conceived in Buddhism. So it is not incompatible. The protection of human rights as a universal concept is not incompatible with the protection of these values. And India and Japan are probably the best example. And I'm saying that that's why this movement, the Asian value movement, died a natural death because it could not be supported. It was not compatible with what they were arguing. So after that, though, the remaining obstacle was ideology, which was a political devil, if I may call it that, rationalized and nursed by what one could call the Cold War. The Cold War was actually hot because it was based on nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons, if you know any physics, he's the hottest material you can have. So the Cold War was cold maybe in politics, but definitely in physics. It was very, very hot. So in the 1960s, the independence of African leaders because of the Cold War, they rationalized the violation of human rights because of Cold War. For example, you may recall this. I'm assuming you're old enough to recall this. In Ghana, the first sub-African country to gain independence from Britain. In Ghana, you remember in Accra, a very loud voice used to, come over to the African country, seek ye the political kingdom first, and the rest will be added unto you. Remember that? That was Osajefo. Osajefo, who was Osajefo? Osajefo was Kwame Nkrumah, the president of Ghana. He was admired by many people as an African leader, but at the same time, he used either he used or he was used by the Cold War to violate human rights and changed the Constitution in 1960, the Independence Constitution of 1957, to the extent that he made himself the first president had specific rights under that Constitution of 1960. He could even fire the judges, and people, started running away from Osajevo's kingdom of political, seek ye the political kingdom first, and the rest will be added unto you. It didn't work. Nyerere in East Africa, of course, as you remember, was on the same side as Nkrumah, but this was ideological. It justified violating because of the one-party system they introduced. They violated political freedom, and there is no doubt about that. But it was rationalized as the African traditional values. We are going back to African tradition. Africans always sat under the tree and argued until sunset. And if they didn't agree, reach a consensus, they would wake up the following morning and continue the discussion. But all that was politics, disguised as protection of human rights. But anyway, I'm giving this history because we went through it and we should avoid it again. Then came the military leaders. The military leaders, as you know, they overthrew Nkrumah, they overthrew Obote, they overthrew only Nyerere and Kenyatta survived of all the original African leaders. Only those two survived. So the main thing was the army, the military were seen as if they were liberating Africa. They were the worst, much worse than the people they overthrew, as you know. This is, I'm not creating this history. Everybody, these are documented. I mean, his regime was more brutal than anything. Even the man in Ghana, Rawlings, Jerry Rawlings, who shot the so-called corrupt leaders, meaning that he will exterminate corruption by shooting in public those he assumed to be corrupt, was in essence a violation of human rights because they were not tried, they were not convicted. It was just his, decision that they were bad and therefore they should be immediately punished with a firing squad. So, given all that, the military, of course, as you know, Museveni is one of those using the gun, saying, I'm going to liberate the country, but the opposite. So in the end, How do we liberate ourselves? By owning the liberation movement. And how do we achieve that? Social change. We have to change society. We have to change the mentality of the people, the way they see the world, the way they think, the way even the way they interpret the Western and whatever African traditions, everything. In that, Ssemakula's question, how long will it take? Well, as I said at the beginning, now we have instantaneous communication, so we can count on a rapid, some kind of what Clinton used to call rapid response. The rapid response squad in Clinton's armory, political armory, was supposed to come out like the fire brigade and take out the fire. So we should act in the same way. We should, just to use the analogy of Clinton's political methods, we should be able to respond quickly and take out the fire or silence. There are people in Kampala who are singing the tunes aimed at apparently making them politically melodious to some people. But they are based on corruption. They think Uganda cannot be liberated or cannot be saved by a person other than Museveni, the most corrupt leader Africa has ever seen. And I think today's morning discussion exposed that, including the First Lady herself. So what I'm trying to say is that in a sense, social change is inevitable. And what makes it inevitable is not democracy. It is the sense of justice, a sense of human being, that we are all created with a sense to know that there is something wrong. When there is an injustice, people perceive it, whether it was through slavery or denying women their rights or whatever it is. People have a conscience to understand that there is an injustice here, and when there is an injustice, that's a good sign that we can mobilize people to move on. And what is going on in Uganda is an injustice. I mean, corruption at the rate at which it is happening is beyond belief. And all your resources, poor people pay the taxes, and they don't have nothing to eat. They eat one meal, and this money is taken by Janet Museveni, who has more than enough to eat, just to launder the money, the same state assets, into banks outside Uganda. So this is unacceptable. It is wrong, and we must fight it. So I will stop there and say that you should, as usual, continue with your clarion call for people to respond and for people to realize that unless they participate and effectively participate, there will be no liberation of Uganda from the corrupt, from the the political vultures that are consuming everything that is in sight in our motherland. So thank you very much for being patient as usual while I ramble around. And in that respect, I would like to stop there and allow you to proceed with the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I can always depend on the people who have been through this, who have been through this back and forth, to bring even more clarity to what I'm trying to say. It is not just enough anymore to mourn about our suffering. It has never been enough just to mourn about our suffering. We need to say clearly, ladies and gentlemen, we need to say it is past time we started doing something about our suffering. Most of you who have been through all the changes that have happened in in Uganda, can attest to this. We always get involved after the fact. Obote got rid of the first president of Uganda, and we complained. We were angry and we complained. Some people did a little things here and there, and they did not get any support. But when Idi Amin came and got rid of Museveni, oh, we danced. Oh, we partied and danced because we had been liberated. We never liberated ourselves. We had been liberated. Took us a very short time to say, oops, I think we have not been liberated. After seeing what the new liberator was doing, then we started crying. We need Idi Amin gone, and so forth and so forth. Idi Amin came not to liberate Uganda. He had his own personal agenda. Then we cried. It took Tanzania, even Ugandans who were out in Tanzania and Zambia working very hard to fight to get rid of Idi Amin. They couldn't get out of their own way. Took Tanzanian army to bring them together. And the fighting they had over there, they brought it back home to Uganda. The question then begs, if Idi Amin had not, quote unquote, attacked Tanzania or crossed the border, Tanzania, if Idi Amin had just stayed inside his border, would we have had, quote unquote, a liberation in 1979? How many years more would Idi Amin have been in place? When the soldiers and the liberators came from Tanzania, we who had been sitting pretty and crying in our soup, we got up and we danced, we celebrated. 1980 came, we had an election. And then the people are like, oops, I don't think we'll be liberated. We need a liberator, somebody to come and liberate us. 10-point program Museveni brought to our people, and we ran to it. Museveni is going to come and bring true democracy and so forth. We ran to it. When Museveni came and finally overtook Kampala, we danced, but we were angry. We danced. We started changing those Charlis around Kampala, putting tires on their necks and burning them with tires. We celebrated. Took a very short time for us to say, oops. Took a short time for us to say, oops. Because, ladies and gentlemen, Museveni is worse than all of them. To quote the celebrated American philosopher George Bush, it is the definition of stupidity when you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. It is said that Thomas Edison failed 100 times before he finally got, was it electricity or the bell or whatever that he did. He failed 100 times. But what he himself was saying, I was eliminating all the other possibilities until I reached the only one that worked. He was not doing the same thing over and over and over. It is therefore up to us, my fellow Ugandans. It is up to you, the supporter of Ugandan causes, to say, look, time for us to get up and do something. And just for a moment, please listen to what Fadu is saying. Fadu is saying, we hear you, and we hear your concern about leaders and leadership. You need not be very concerned, because we are not about who the next president of Uganda is going to be. We are about what the next political system in Uganda is going to be. Because we believe that political system will require a different administrative structure to it. A structure that will be determined by that leadership, by that system. And the leadership that is going to emanate will be determined by that system. Therefore, you and I need to focus on what political system we're going to put in place in Uganda. Once we put that political system in place, then we will know what kind of leadership we are going to need. Because we might need a set of leaders that are totally different from this unitary Republican system that we have been having for the last 50-some years. For you and for me, Uganda is our land. Uganda is our country. Uganda is our motherland. We are not simply making these statements because of pride and so forth. We are assigning ourselves that responsibility, ladies and gentlemen, that comes with citizenship. It's your responsibility as well as mine to liberate our country. And we ask you, join us. Let us put our hands together. Let us walk lockstep to Kampala and wrest our country away from the dictatorship, from the people who are killing us. Let it not be said that we followed what our fathers and our grandfathers did and sat back and cried in our soup until somebody came and then we got up and danced. Only to sit back down the next day and say, oops, that is not what we wanted. The Jews wanted a king to come with fire and brimstone and liberate them from the Egyptians. and liberate them from the Romans. God promised them a leader. God promised them a leader. The same way a lot of organizations out there are promising Uganda a leader. But when that leader came, it wasn't what they expected. When our next leader came, it was not what we expected, because instead of getting the next Mandela, instead of getting the next Martin Luther King, we got Idi Amin. Then we got Obote. Then we got Museveni. Then we got, who's the next? Let me stop there, because our time is up. Thank you very much for listening to us. We're going to be back next week, ladies and gentlemen, with a new episode of Focus on Uganda. We hope you listen. We hope you'll join us. But most importantly, we hope this time you will get up, go onto your Facebook, go to go onto your computer and go onto our website, www.fadu.org. And we hope you click donate. And we hope you will donate $10, $15, $20, or even $5, ladies and gentlemen. Just to tell yourself, you know what? I am making a contribution to the struggle for our country. Because, ladies and gentlemen, when Uganda cries out, Uganda is crying out for you to come and liberate it. Thank you. Have a very, very wonderful week, and we'll see you back in the air on Saturday.